creamy, cheesy bacon slaw. So we're going to start by chopping up some rashers of bacon, and I'm using streaky bacon. You can use back bacon if you like, but just remember back bacon has less fat, so you may need some additional fat for this recipe then. Next, I'm going to put my bacon in a cold frying pan and then turn on the heat. And the idea is that I want to render out all that bacon fat. So put it on a medium heat and just let that bacon cook. Now remember folks, you got to be patient here because it's going to take some time, maybe 5 or 10 minutes. The bacon will heat up, that fat will melt and render out, and the bacon will start to get crispy. Now of course you can cook the bacon to your liking, so if you prefer chewier bacon, then cook it as long as required to be chewy, otherwise let it crisp up completely. Now cooking bacon can be a dangerous task because have you heard of bacon burns? Sometimes the bacon just explodes in the frying pan and the oil hits you and you get burnt. So I have this wonderful tool called a splatter screen that I use from time to time. So remember guys, safety first. If you have a splatter screen, use it. Anyway, my bacon is done cooking now and it's done exactly how I want it. Not too crispy and not too chewy. Anyway, to this I'm going to add some chopped cabbage. And then I'm going to season the cabbage with some salt, some black pepper, some garlic powder, some paprika, and some dried oregano. And then, ladies and gentlemen, give it all a good mix. Now once again, you can cook the cabbage to your liking. If you like it to have some bite, then don't cook it too long. If you prefer it slightly softer, cook it for a longer duration. Anyway, once your cabbage is kind of cooked, I'm going to add in some cheese, and I'm adding in some lovely strong cheddar. You can use whatever cheese you like, no problem. I'm also going to pour in some heavy whipping cream. And then of course give it all a good mix. And you know, this is kind of like a bacon cheese sauce almost, but not quite. Anyway, give that all a good mix. I felt I wanted to add a little more cream, so I did. Give it all a good mix. And then, well, it was pretty much ready. Now I love the taste of fresh herbs in any dish, so I added some fresh coriander to finish it with. Of course you can use parsley, you can use chives, it's completely up to you. I didn't have any of those, so well, coriander it was, or cilantro as you call it. Anyway, our cheesy bacon cabbage slaw is ready and it's time to taste. Chicken dumplings and a delicious dipping sauce to go with it. Let's start with the dipping sauce so that we can get it out of the way. We're going to take some peanut butter, some sriracha sauce, some ginger garlic paste, some soya sauce, some rice wine vinegar, and some fresh coriander. And give it all a good mix. And some oil of your choice. I'm using olive oil as always. And give it all a good mix. Then we're just going to check it for seasoning. Add a little bit of salt, some lime juice, and give it another good mix. And our sauce is ready, the dipping sauce. Now for the dumpling filling, we're using 500 grams of chicken mince. We're going to season this with some salt, some Szechuan pepper, some pandan powder, and some cayenne pepper just for a little bit of heat. A teaspoon of ginger garlic paste, and I'm going to add in 25 grams of onion grated, half a spring onion, and some fresh coriander, and give that all a good mix. Oh, and I'm adding in a drizzle of sesame oil just for a little bit of flavor, optional, and give it a good mix once again. And our dumpling mix is ready. Now for the dumpling skins, and we are going to be using cabbage, and trust me guys, it's incredible, you won't believe it. So all you got to do is basically separate the cabbage, and it's a bit tricky. You got to separate each leaf of the cabbage. Once you're done peeling your cabbage, get a pot of water on the stove, add some salt to it, and once that water comes to a boil, add in your cabbage leaves, and then just cover it and cook for about 5 to 7 minutes till the cabbage is nice and tender. And once that's done, we're going to take that cabbage out and set it aside. Now it's time to create our dumplings using that cabbage skin, and just cut it and arrange it however you need it. Stuff it with the lovely chicken mince you have prepared and roll it like you would a dumpling. It's pretty simple, and of course, because cabbage is well uneven, it's going to be all these lovely different shaped dumplings. Oh yeah, variety is the spice of life. Once your dumplings are rolled and ready, just put your steamer over the water, oil it a bit so that the dumplings don't stick, and then place your dumplings in there and cook it for about 10 minutes on a low heat. Chicken doesn't take very long to cook. If you're working with pork or if you're working with beef, it might take longer. If you're using seafood, it might take even less time. And oh yeah, those dumplings are ready, and we're just going to set them aside. Now I'm feeling really adventurous, so I'm going to heat up some olive oil in a pan, and once that olive oil is nice and hot, I'm going to put in those dumplings, and I'm going to pan fry those dumplings. And oh yeah, and look at them, the shape has held, the cabbage hasn't unraveled or anything, it's perfect. And once they have a nice brown color, we're going to take them out of the pan, and that's pretty much it. Your dumplings are ready. Whether you want to pan fry them or steam them, they're good to go and they look delicious. And don't forget that dipping sauce. Spiced Indian cabbage dish called Patta Gobi Ki Sabzi. So the first thing we're going to do is take our cabbage and chop it up. You want to sort of shred the cabbage like you would for coleslaw. So just nice long strips, not too thick, not too thin. And we're only going to be using about half the cabbage for this recipe, about 250 grams of raw cabbage. Once that's done, you want to get your kadai on the stove. Well, if you don't have a kadai like this dish, you can just use a wok or a frying pan. And I'm going to heat up 2 tablespoons of desi ghee. You can also use butter, you can also use olive oil, you can also use coconut oil. Now into this, I'm going to add half a teaspoon of cumin seeds and half a teaspoon of black mustard seeds. And as the ghee heats up, you'll see the cumin seeds start to sizzle, and then the mustard seeds will start popping as well. When that happens, you're going to throw in a handful of fresh curry leaves. And those curry leaves are going to get deep fried in that ghee. I'm also going to add in a pinch of hing or asafoetida. Hey folks, if you don't have hing or asafoetida, you can completely skip it. I will put an Amazon link to buy this on the website, that's headbangerskitchen.com. That's also where you will find the written recipe with the macros. Now folks, if you like your food spicy, then at this point you can also throw in 1 green chili or 2, depending on how spicy you like it. Then I'm just going to give it a quick mix to make sure nothing is burning. And then I'm going to throw in the cabbage. Throw in all that cabbage. Much like spinach and other vegetables, it will reduce in size. So even though my pan looks crowded, it's all good. Anyway, mix everything really well. And once you've done that, it's time to season it. We're going to be adding some salt to this and some turmeric powder. That's it, nothing else. No fancy spices, just salt and turmeric, and then give it all a good mix. And then we're going to cover it with a lid and just let it cook for about 5 to 6 minutes till the cabbage is nice and tender. Once that's done, well, your dish is pretty much ready. I'm just going to finish it off with some fresh coriander. Give it all another good mix. And then my Patta Gobi Ka Sabzi is ready. There's nothing left to do now except taste it. So we're going to do just that. Toltot Kaposta. That is Hungarian cabbage rolls. So the first thing we're going to do is get a pot of water on the stove, and we're going to season that water with salt, and we're going to bring it up to a boil. While we're doing that, we're going to prepare our cabbage, and to prep the cabbage, all we're really going to do is just take out part of the core of the cabbage. This will make it easier to remove the leaves. Once the water is boiling, we're going to put our cabbage into the water. And and I had a lot of water in the pot, so I was fiddling around with the cabbage for a little bit. But anyway, what you want to do is you just want to cover it with the lid and cook it for about 5 minutes. Anyway, I did that once I stopped fiddling with the cabbage. After about 5 minutes, the leaves will start to peel off, the outer leaves, and they will come out quite easily. And this is a bit of process. As the leaves cook and soften, they will be easy to remove. So one by one you will start to remove the outer leaves. After you've got a couple of the leaves out, you'll probably want to cover it again and let it continue cooking. Once the leaves soften, remove the outer ones, and you will basically keep repeating this process. And you will do it till you get as many leaves as you need. And I did this a couple of times. I'd cook it till the outer leaves would soften, remove them, let it cook some more. And a couple of times I even had to use the knife to help me because I didn't take out enough of the core. But anyway, that doesn't matter. So keep doing this, and then once you've got most of your cabbage left, you can just cover it and let it cook. Now while that cabbage is cooking, I'm going to prep the leaves. And for the bigger leaves, what you can do is you can take out the white part of it in the middle and make smaller leaves, because otherwise you'll just get a giant leaf of cabbage. And make sure you don't waste the white stem of the leaves. We're going to chop those up and use them later. Don't throw any of this away. So yeah, just prep your leaves as you're preparing the cabbage at the same time, once they've cooled down enough to handle. Anyway, once your cabbage is boiled completely, remove it from the pot and set it aside to cool. And also strain out that liquid and don't waste any of it, because that is like a cabbage stock. We're going to use it later. And once your cabbage has cooled down, just chop it all up nice and finely. Of course, do this only after you've gotten out as many leaves as you need for the cabbage rolls. Then whatever's left you can chop up like this. The next thing I'm going to be doing is making the stuffing for the cabbage rolls, and I'm going to be using a kilo of ground pork meat. I'm going to season the pork generously with some salt, some black pepper powder, and be generous, some Hungarian paprika, or if you don't have access to that, you can use any paprika that's available to you. Then I'm going to take a mortar and pestle, and I'm just going to crush up some caraway seeds. Now this is not normally used, but I'm just doing it to add another layer of flavor to the pork mince. Anyway, add those crushed caraway seeds to the ground pork meat as well. So normally the Hungarians add white rice to the mixture, but since we're on keto, I'm just using some cooked cauliflower rice. And if you don't know how to make cauliflower rice, click on the I button on the screen and watch my recipe video on how to do that. So add the cooked cauliflower rice to the mixture as well. And then we're going to crack 1 egg into that. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, we give it all a good mix. Now you can completely skip that cauliflower rice if you don't want to add that. You can also add 2 eggs instead of 1 egg. It's completely up to you. Anyway, after trying to mix this with a fork and realizing it's not going as well as I would like, I shifted over to my hands and I gave it all a good mix with my hands, just like the Hungarians do. I've never seen a Hungarian mix this with a fork, so well, I guess it was just destiny that I had to mix this with my hands. Anyway, enough jibber jabber. Once it's mixed, on to the next step. So now it's time to make the cabbage rolls, and we're going to take our prepped cabbage leaves and we're going to take our ground pork mixture and we're going to basically wrap the pork mixture in the cabbage leaves. I'm going to show you how to do them, and then you can make as many as you require. So that's how it's done, and let me show you another set of them. Nothing fancy. You can also use a toothpick to hold them together if you want, but I feel you can just wrap them and they'll be secure. So anyway, I'm done making a whole bunch of cabbage rolls and they look amazing and I can't wait to cook them. So now I'm going to get the same pan back on the stove and I'm going to add in some smoked bacon cubes. You can also use regular bacon, or if you don't want to use bacon at all, you can use some lard and cooking fat and then go straight to the next step. But first I've got to basically cook the bacon, render out as much of that bacon fat as I can and get that bacon crispy, or as crispy as it can get. And this takes a bit of time, a little bit of love and care. So cook that bacon on a lowish heat. Let that fat render out, let it start to get brown and crispy, and keep moving it around and cooking it. Now of course in Hungary they don't do this, but this is an extra step I have added to build some layers of flavor. Also they might use Hungarian sausage in this dish, and they may also use other pork things that we don't get here in India. So I'm doing the best I can with what I have. So anyway, once that bacon is done, I'm going to remove half of it with a slotted spoon and set it aside. And then I'm going to throw in some onion into that. I'm also going to add in a knob of butter at this point because, well, butter makes everything taste a little bit better. And I just want to add some extra fat to this dish as well. And give it all a good mix. And what I'm doing now is I'm softening the onions and I'm cooking it in that bacon fat, and I want to get some color in it, and this is going to help build a lot of flavor. I'm also going to take the white part of the cabbage that I saved and I'm going to throw that into this as well. And I'm just going to cook it all down. The cabbage will start to caramelize and get delicious. The onions will soften and start to brown, and we build lots and lots of flavor. Anyway, the next thing I'm going to do is throw in a couple of cloves of garlic because, well, garlic is good and it tastes delicious and it adds so much flavor to these dishes. So anyway, give that all a good mix and cook that till the garlic starts to get a little bit of color. The next thing I'm going to do is add a teaspoon of paprika and give it all a good mix. Paprika is one of the main flavors in this dish, and the Hungarians do love their paprika. So give it all a good mix, cook it for about maybe 30 seconds to a minute, not too long and on not too high a heat. Then I'm going to throw in some of that chopped up cabbage, and I'm just going to press it down, and I'm also going to add some of that cabbage stock, about a spoon or two. This is to stop the sort of paprika from burning and overcooking. And then I'm just going to press everything down, and now we're going to create layers in this dish. So I've managed to get some sauerkraut here in Mumbai, thankfully, and I'm going to create a layer of that sauerkraut. And then on go my cabbage rolls, and I'm going to fill it up with a layer of cabbage rolls. Then on go some more of that chopped cabbage, and then some of that bacon, another layer of sauerkraut, and then some more cabbage rolls. Just pile them on there. A little more of that leftover bacon, some more sauerkraut, and just for a little burst of flavor, one green chili pepper. And then I'm going to pour in some of that cabbage stock that we had, and I'm going to fill it up about 3/4 of the way. I'm going to layer the top with some of the leftover cabbage leaves, and then I'm going to cover it with a lid and let it cook on a low heat for about 60 minutes. And of course, halfway through, I'm just going to check and make sure everything is cooking well. Play around with it a little bit, cover it and let it continue cooking. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I've got some of that fresh cabbage left. I've got some cabbage rolls left, and I've got even some of that cabbage stock left. Don't throw any of this away. Click on the I button and see some of my recipes where you can use these and make some delicious dishes. Anyway, after about 60 minutes, it's ready, and oh yeah, you can't really see anything because there's cabbage on the top. So I'm going to move aside those cabbage leaves on the top, but you can eat them of course, and you should eat them. Anyway, I'm going to put the cabbage rolls onto the plate. Make sure you get some of that sauerkraut and some of that bacon. You want to get all of it in. And then of course we're going to top it with some sour cream. Oh yeah. And of course finish it with some fresh parsley. And there you have it, folks. Our Hungarian stuffed cabbage rolls are ready, and it looks delicious. But before I taste it, I'm going to cut into those rolls and show you food porn. Yes, food porn, ladies and gentlemen. But anyway, enough jibber jabber, time to taste now.